Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Great Vocal Majority Podcast, your source for the conservative view on American politics and culture, and where the issues are discussed with goodwill, candor, and intelligence. And now, here's your host, Tony Cottaspati.
Hey everybody, I'm here today to talk about Russian collusion. Oh no. Yeah, I know everybody hears that and you just go, please kill me first. But I'm not here to talk about the collusion as you know it, this whole thing with Russia and Trump and whether or not it happened. And, the fact of the matter is, no matter what anybody tells you, there really isn't any evidence that's been presented publicly so far that Trump has colluded with Russians. But I'm not here to talk about that today. I'm here to talk about the collusion we can prove. And no, I'm not here to talk about the collusion of the Hillary Clinton campaign and getting that dossier. No. This is totally unrelated to that. This has been going on for years. And it's so deep and it's so complex. I created a companion piece, a massive PDF file. I'd say massive. It's not that massive. It's about 30 pages long, a PDF file. And all it consists of are news articles that I pulled by Googling, and they're mainstream media articles. They primarily come from places like the Guardian, Newsweek is in there, the Daily Caller, industry, trade publications, and it quotes experts and leaders of NATO and other things. So what am I really talking about? I'm here to talk about the collaboration that actually has been happening for years now with Russia. It's been going on for a long time. Now, in fairness, I will say, because I have been able to pull some pretty good documentation on this, that it has been in the media. The trouble is, the media doesn't just focus on this endlessly like they do with this Trump-Russia thing. In fact, it's kind of curious that they haven't really focused on it in that same manner at all, given the fact that this is a pretty remarkable level of collusion and corruption, and I would even say collaboration with Russia. So you don't get the same breathless media coverage, but yet this Russian collusion that I have on the subject here is just as subversive. In fact, I would say it doesn't subvert our electoral process perhaps, but it certainly does subvert our economic growth. It subverts our industrial capacity and our strategic position in the world, and I think that can be said without any fear of contradiction. What I discovered is actually hiding in plain sight, to be honest with you. And it speaks to the influence that our mainstream media has on focusing our national attention, in the sense that this is not a topic that they, just fixate on. This is one that they covered, and boom, they're on to the next thing. They just spent no time on this at all, but they did spend at least a modicum of time. And so that's good enough to come up with what I came up with here. And this all starts, in terms of my research on this, in June of 2014, in the US edition of The Guardian, where the headline read, "Russia secretly working with environmentalists to oppose fracking." Now, this was an article that was written not about fracking in the United States, but fracking in Europe, in places like Poland and Great Britain, where they were looking at fracking. And the article claimed that a NATO chief, whose name was Anders Rasmussen, who said that Moscow was mounting, now remember, this is 4 years ago, mounting a disinformation campaign to maintain Europe's reliance on Russian gas. Now, let's stop and consider that for a second. A disinformation campaign to increase the reliance on Russian gas. Now, think back to a few weeks ago when Angela Merkel was exposed as having conducted a secret deal for a pipeline of Russian natural gas into Germany, bypassing our other allies. But, and not only that, Gerhard Schroeder is running the company, the Russian company, he's a former chancellor of Germany. So tell me that's not corruption, to increase the dependence on Russian natural gas. So here's the quote from Rasmussen. It's a little extensive, so let me read it quickly. I've met allies who can report that Russia, as part of their sophisticated information and disinformation operation, engaged actively with so-called non-governmental aid organizations, NGOs, environmental organizations working against shale gas to maintain European dependence on imported Russian gas. And further, that's the full quote. Another unnamed NATO source said, we don't go into details of discussions among Allied leaders, but Russia has been using a mix of hard and soft power in its attempt to recreate a sphere of influence, including through a campaign of disinformation on many issues, including energy. In general, the potential for Russia using energy supplies as a means of putting pressure on European nations is a matter of concern. No country should use supply and pricing terms as tools of coercion. Now, that's from an unnamed NATO source. This is all 4 years ago, mind you now. During who? Obama. Thank you. The environmental groups predictably condemned what Rasmussen said publicly here. Greenpeace, Friends of Earth are quoted in this Guardian article, which I included in this compendium, the PDF file that I'll be putting a link to. But that was 2014, and you should really always follow the money, shouldn't you? So 6 months later, another article appeared in the Washington Free Beacon, and that headline said, foreign firms funding U.S. groups tied to state-owned Russia oil company. Now this is where it gets heavy and deep, folks, because what they learned was some guy named Nicholas Hoskins, who directs a hedge fund that's heavily invested in Russian oil and gas, is also a senior counsel lawyer at a Bermuda law firm, and on top of that, he's a vice president of a London-based investment firm whose president in 2014 was chairman of the board of Rosneft. Now, Rosneft is the state-owned Russia oil company. So you're beginning to see the linkage here between this guy running all these hedge funds and this law firm and the Russian oil company in Bermuda, okay? Now, Hoskins is also the director of a company called Klein Limited. And the interesting thing about Klein Limited is that we don't know where they get their money, but we know where they put their money. So where do they put their money? Well, we have records from 2010 and 2011 that show that Klein Limited sent $23 million, it's not an insubstantial amount of money, to U.S. environmental groups that push policies that would hamstring surging oil and gas production in the United States. And that, by the way, hurts the Russian economy because we're competing with them, and Russia pretty much, oil and gas that's it for them, right? That's all they have. That's all they have to offer. So Hoskins' Bermuda law firm has 20 clients that are either companies or investment funds. All of those 20 have ties to the Russian government. And Klein Limited is also at the same address in Bermuda as the law firm from Hoskins and the hedge fund that he manages. So, but it gets better. So in 2010 and 2011, the only record of business conducted by Klein Limited were these transfers of $23 million that they made to a California-based company called Sea Change Foundation. Now, listen to this. The Sea Change Foundation got 40% of their total funding from Klein Limited. That's not an insignificant amount, 40%. Now, what does Sea Change do? Well, Sea Change Limited is one of these companies that basically is a pass-through. They get the money coming into them from Klein Limited, 23 million, and other places that we haven't researched yet, but I'm sure we'll find out at some point. And then Sea Change disperses it. And who do they give the money to? The Sierra Club, the Natural Resource Defense Council, the League of Conservation Voters, and guess what? The Center for American Progress. Isn't that interesting? So who runs the Sierra Club? I mean, not the Sierra Club, the Sea Change Foundation. Well, the Sea Change Foundation, we'll get into in a second, but first I want to recap a little, because I know what I just told you is kind of convoluted, but I want to boil it down so it makes it simpler. So let's summarize. Russia, with the help of this guy Hoskins, sets up Bermuda corporations. He has a law firm, a hedge fund, and where they place, and which the hedge fund itself places the money into this shell called Klein Limited, and then Klein Limited funnels it to a 501c3 called Sea Change, and then they pass it off to all of these wacky environmental groups that everybody's heard of, okay? And they're all pushing policies that are favorable to Russia. So this is how Russia funds environmental groups in the United States. Now, for example, the Sierra Club received $8.5 million from Sea Change in 2010 and 2011. Now, Sea Change gets 40% of their money from Klein in those 2 years. So you could say 40% of the 8.5 came from Russia. That's 40% of 8.5 million is over $3 million. Okay? So millions of dollars. And this is just what we know, folks. Who knows where the rest of the money's coming from that comes into Sea Change that goes to the Sierra Club and other places. So who is Sea Change? Well, you think to yourself, well, Sea Change, I mean, there's a lot of 501c3s like this and everything. It's funny, Lois Lerner never probably went after Sea Change. Just saying, 501c3. Sea Change is made up of two people. A guy named Nathaniel Simons and his wife. That's it. The two of them. And they sit there and write checks based on the money that they get coming in, and they write checks to these other environmental groups. So they're getting their money from, they probably fund the Sea Change out of their own pocket as well, which is legitimate because, they're American citizens. They can do what they want with their money. But they take this, but who is Nathaniel Simons now? Where do you hear this? Nathaniel Simons is a hedge fund millionaire. He lives in San Francisco. He doesn't drive to work. He takes his yacht. That's a true story. He takes his yacht to work every day. All right? But he's the son of a guy named Jim Simons, who is a billionaire and a Democratic Party mega donor. So you see how this is all connected? This is all connected to the Democratic Party. So, but here's the best part. The hedge funds that both Simons operate, the father and the son, have the same Bermuda address. The same address as the fronts run by Hoskins, the law firm, the hedge fund, and Klein Limited. All of that is together. Now, this is all I'm going to do in the video. I don't want to make it very long. But if you go through the PDF file that I post, that I'll post a link to, you're going to see that there's about 8 or 10 articles in there. And what you'll find that's very interesting that I did not include in this little spiel is the fact that in Russia, there's an environmental organization that is, trying to do the same things that the Sierra Club and others in this country are trying to do. But Russia shut them down. And you know why? Because they said, you're going to love this. How ironic is this? They shut them down because they think they're foreign agents. So how's that for projection, folks? The Russians are shutting down their own environmental organizations because Putin thinks that they could be doing to him what he's doing to us. So think about that when you hear stories about Russian collusion. That's it for me. I'm Tony Codispoti from the Great Vocal Majority. Please take a look at the YouTube channel, take a look at the website, download this PDF, spread it around. I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in it now, especially since we're talking about Russian collusion. Take care.